Well, good morning, Monday the 13th of January. Happy New Year to everybody. Start of the year's not been that great. I've had that horrible stinking cold. Really, is he into another fish up there? You in again? Daryl's already had 2 pike. Normally I would do an intro straight away, but he's had 2 pike already. One about 13, 14 pound and one about 7 pound, both on dead baits using the up trace as I showed in my video 3. I just caught 4 little live roach, 4 inches long, and I'm actually using a sunken float paternoster today. So I've got a live bait out on a sunken float. I'll show you the rig etc later on in the video, the setup. But obviously I've only just cast out. I'm sitting here because I can watch that rod tip at all time. I'm only using a single hook, putting the hook in the towel so the bait's swimming away from the main line. I've got an up trace on, which is slightly different to that we use when we're fishing a dead bait with a live on it. And all looking good. We're in a couple of swims that are really normally taken. We got here this morning, 1 car in the car park. The swim I'm in was taken, but the chap who was roach fishing couldn't get a bite, so he's moved on to another river. And I'd be foolish not to come in here, because every time there's a roach angler or dace angler, they're complaining about pike problems, and I know this area does a big pike, a scraper 20 it has done. So hopefully that fish wasn't caught and put in the main river, in the weir, because that's what a lot of the roach anglers do. They sling out a live bait, catch a pike and get rid of it in the other river. But in all honesty, it's only going to give you respite for maybe a few hours a day, because this is their domain. That pike you put in the main river is just going to swim upstream straight back here and come back where the roach are. So yeah, all looking good. As I said, Daryl's got 2 fish on dead baits. I've got a live bait out, so fingers crossed we're going to get a few more fish in the course of the next few hours. My job was to catch live baits, which I've just done for little roach. Daryl's cast out, what was that, a dead dace I think, with the head chopped off, and within minutes another tap on there, little tap.
Little tiny tap.
And he's got this, which I would say is a personal best pike, probably 13, 14 pound, we'll weigh it, but that's a PB. Another 10 pound would be nice, but on a really cold day, as I say, it's our 4th trip down. We're on the backwater because the main river's in the field, so we've just come down here because we know we're going to get a few fish. Well done, buddy, you're up and running. Yeah, lovely, well done, mate. Just keep catching those tiddlers, mate. At the moment I can't get my rod in the water because Mr. Beck here has just had his 2nd pike, not a big one, little jack, probably about 7 pound, on a dead bait with a dace with the head chopped off, frozen so it leaks it all out. Luckily he didn't lose the dead bait on the first fish, put it back out and off it goes again. So we know today we're in an area that has done some big pike. We just have to sit it out. We're not going to be mobile today, I don't think, and hopefully we're going to get a few. Well, we've had 2, so we're happy already. Well, he is, I'm not. He might let me get my rod out, but hopefully I'll get the rod out, and between us we'll have a couple more before the day's gone. We're a couple of hours into the session and I did miss a bite soon after Daryl had his 2nd pike, fishing the Sunken paternoster live bait. Struck really early, senior moment, I forgot I was on a single hook. Normally I just I take my time, I don't pick the rod up, and I sort of panicked and just missed that fish. So and since then I've had one other inquiry where I think something came up and the live bait got really kind of agitated, but it didn't come into anything, and it's really difficult. I'm in that sort of situation where do I move, because quite often we've moved about, you drop a bait in a swim and you get a bite or two very quickly like Daryl had this morning, but I started catching live baits downstream, caught 4 really quickly. There was the odd roach moving, Daryl had his 2 fish, I had a miss bite, and then since then other anglers have turned up, they're fishing down where I was. Daryl's gone down to see if he could catch some live bait as well, and nobody can get a bite, and it's not even on maggot, not trotting, and this area, this stretch is so prolific, so it's really difficult. Do I move about, drop a bait in, or do I stick here? I know this swim has got a big fish, one, and other pike in here, so there's plenty of bait fish in here. Nothing's moving. We are coming, you know, it's the first day. We didn't have a frost this morning. We've had that really cold spell, so the core temperature of the water and the land is really cold. There wasn't a frost, but I think the water temperature's just dropped. Atmospherics aren't brilliant, and my kind of idea is if I can't catch a pike in this swim today, I probably am likely to catch one anywhere else. So I think it's just a case of sitting it out and fingers crossed, maybe putting 2 rods out here, one with a dead bait, one with the live bait, until that kind of like we can't use that one anymore, and then maybe just set out with 2 deads unless Daryl can catch some live. So yeah, it's sort of like make your mind up time, and I'm a little bit, but I think I'm going to sit nice and sit in here and just hope that a big fish comes along. Let's just talk about the Sunken float paternoster and how to set it up very quickly and how it works. Let's start at the top end. Obviously I've got my 45-pound braid, I've got an inline float there, I've got no weight to cock that, I'll explain in a minute. A little float stop, 2 beads, and I can adjust that just so where the float lays in the water. This float is going to be under the water, and I can just adjust that. I normally fish it about 3 foot off the bottom, but obviously if it's shallower or deeper, you can position it where you want. You can almost position it right up on the surface or just below the surface, so you can watch it, but it needs to be under the water. And then coming down, I've got the up trace. Now an up trace is very important because obviously the Sunken float paternoster, I'm using a live bait, and when a pike hits that live bait, it comes up in the water. It could quite easily end up with the mono or the braid, whatever you're using, in its mouth, your main line, and bite you off, and then you're just winding in a limp line, which isn't what you want ever to happen. So you need to try and eliminate that from your pike fishing. The up trace here is 24 inches and it's made of 49 strand wire. You can use, as I said in the past, a heavy fluorocarbon. So that's your up trace, and then coming off the up trace, I've got a swivel. You can buy these up traces made up and it's fixed. I don't want that coming up the line, I want it stationary there. There's a little snap link there, and you've got your trace coming off. In this case I've got a single treble. As you saw, I changed to 2 trebles because my actual live bait was quite about 4 inches long, and I missed a bite on a single. I'd prefer to use a single, but it all depends on what size bait you're using. But that hook link, that trace, needs to be shorter than the up trace, and it also needs to be shorter than what we call the rotten bottom here. This rotten bottom is made up of 8-pound mono, so if the lead gets snagged, it would just break and release that hooked fish. And now at the bottom of the rotten bottom, I've got a lead, again on a little snap link there, so I can change the weight of that. Ideally what I'm trying to do is get away with the lightest lead, a lead that will hold bottom in the flow, and one that won't actually get dragged around by my live bait. So how it works is the float's sunk under the surface. The float is trying to get to the surface, obviously, because it's buoyant. The lead is holding it down, and off that actual trace is a shorter hook link with a live bait, and that live bait is trying to swim around in a circle. It's pulling the float down, but the float is trying to get up to the surface. If it goes upwards, it's being stopped by the lead, so it's actually sort of tethered there and sending out vibrations and movements to any pike that's in the area. So it's an absolutely fantastic method to use for zander. I use it on the Thames from the boat, and I can actually tell from the bite what species have picked up my live bait. It's great for perch when using a single hook and a really small live bait on the canals, let's say. But what you've got to remember is there's no low resistant rig here. When a pike hits that live bait, it's going to be dragging that lead around, it's going to be dragging the float around. So what you'll find is your rod will be just like moving. Sometimes it twitches in the flow, the live bait maybe just like flicks its tail, and you get two types of bites. As you saw, you can get a complete drop back, so you've got to be vigilant all the time. Sometimes you're just looking at the rod tip and you'll just see the braid just drop down and lay across the surface. That's when a pike has hit that live bait, it's coming towards you. Pick the rod up, wind the slack down until you feel some weight, set the hook. The other bite, you can be watching the rod tip and all of a sudden it starts tapping away as that live bait gets really agitated. A predator has approached that bait, and the next thing it's tapping away, and then it just goes wallop. As long as you've got your bait runner set really lightly, again, pick that rod up, knock the bait runner off, wind down, set the hooks. It's an absolutely fantastic way of presenting a live bait up in the water, right in the front of where pike are feeding. And you know, if this doesn't work with a live bait, then no other rig will. So give it a go. It's absolutely fantastic. It's caught me loads of predators, zander, pike and perch in its time, and it really won't let you down. On days like today, when it's been really tough, you will get more bites than other people. Obviously Daryl got a couple of bites early on, feeding period, but he never got any more, whereas I got one and missed one, and I also had a live bait getting agitated. So it really is one of those rigs that will really score highly. Well, as I mentioned in my last video, I'm going to try and answer a subscriber's comment made to, you know, one of my videos, and this one is from a chap called Tommy. Thank you, Tommy, and to everybody else that makes a comment. As you know, I do try and come back straight away in most cases. Tommy's actual comment was, am I experienced or getting drop runs because I've got that rod up in the air and the angle of the rod tip down to the lead and bait is causing some resistance? And on the rivers I have no problem at all. As you know, I'm using 45-pound braid. That's not really tight down to the lead like you could probably do with mono. There's always a little bit of give or a little bit of slack in that, and as soon as a pike picks that bait up, it's registering it back to the rod tip. And as soon as I notice that, and I'm looking at the rod tips, as you know, all the time, I'm picking that rod up, taking up the slack, winding down, feeling some weight and setting some hook, you know, setting those hooks. So on the rivers I'm not experiencing any problems whatsoever. If I was, then I'd obviously have to rethink my setup and my bite indication. Now if I was on a still water and bites I find a little bit more positive, let's say, I cast out, I point the rod tips right to where I've cast, reducing the resistance, and then just drop using an indicator, a little bobbin on a long drop, and as the bobbin goes up, as it reaches the rod blank, I'm picking the rod up and again striking. So thanks for your comment. I hope that's explained that one. No problem, not on the rivers, not with braid, not with rod tips high. Just be vigilant, and as soon as you see any movement on that rod tip, check it, wind down and strike. Well, it's coming up to 20 to 3, and we need to be on the road at 3 o'clock or out of the car park by 3:30. Pushing it last time to get home for 5 o'clock. Yeah, frustrating day, and it just goes to show that, you know, I've been trying to get in this area for quite a while, and it's very difficult. It's very popular with roach and dace anglers, and then the day that I do get in here, you know, I'm 100% confident with the Sunken float paternoster. I'm using a live bait, which these pike are kind of tuned into eating. I've had one chance at about, I don't know, 10:15 this morning, and that's it, nothing more. Everybody along the river is saying they can't even catch silvers down further downstream, can't even get a bite. Daryl had the two earlier and had nothing since, and it's just that this river has just switched off, and I can only assume, because I try and take something from every session, that feeding spell was first thing this morning. So if you can get here and get a rod out at 7:30, half 7 to 10:30, that's your bite time, and then it's going to probably be from about 3 o'clock onwards when we're not here. You may ask what's the point in coming down? All the time you've got a bait in the water, you've got a chance. Daryl's had a couple of good fish, I've missed a chance, and we've also learnt, because I spoke to another chap who's just kind of given me some information of a mid-20 that came out of an area which needs to be investigated. So it just goes to show you can be fishing the best swim on the river or a really good area. Everything can be in your favour, you know, your rig's perfect, your bait really good quality and fresh. If those pike aren't feeding, then you know, you're going home on a blank really. I would have been more disappointed if I'd actually moved out of here, moved around and gone home and not caught, because then I would have been thinking I should have sat in that swim. It's a good area. We know that if I can't catch fish, you know, get more action out of this swim today, then there's something in the air. I've just looked at my phone, the weather app. It's it's 1,038 millibars. That is absolutely crap. You know, it can't get much worse. Southerly wind, not a lot of it. We're just coming out of a cold spout. It's only about 4 degrees today, 5 degrees. So this water is as cold as it can get. So, you know, Daryl, the good thing about today is Daryl's conversion rate of like bites to fish in the net is bang on now. He's doing really well. I missed one, but all pike anglers know you always miss the odd one. I'm just going to go home and say that was just a small fish. So my line's just gone slack. Daryl, I'm in. No action all day, and as I said, from 3 o'clock the action should increase. And I just looked out, my line was slack, and this little jack comes along. Only a little baby, but it's not a blank, and I think that might have been the one that I missed earlier today. So I'm happy with that on a really difficult day. Just proves that the rig's working. But yeah, just a tough one, and I'm not bringing Daryl again.